Cheers, guys. I've got my icy cold water here. It's definitely required because it has been crazy hot these past few weeks, and I've basically been at a bit of a standstill with the work that I can do. So I decided that rather than put out some work videos where I'm pushing through some terrible heat, I would take it easy in August and put out a few videos that are more related to me chatting than working. So this is part 2 of my question and answer session. I put out the call a while ago for some questions, and I've done a building related video, which you can click up here to see. And I'm going to do a land related video where I'll take you on a tour around the land and answer your questions to do with that. And this video is all about me. I got some questions just about my life, who I am, and then some general questions as well about life in Portugal and stuff like that. So one of the common questions I've been getting lately is what's up with my logo? I started this logo design back a couple Christmases ago, I think when I was in Canada. I was hiding away from the elements, staying indoors, and I decided to do some design stuff, including this logo. And I'm gonna reveal the logo at the end of this video. So if that's something you're interested in seeing, keep watching, and I would love to hear feedback on it. So stick around to the end, and I'm gonna do the great logo reveal 2 years after I actually designed the thing, but better late than never. So let's get into the questions about me and about general life in Portugal. First one's pretty simple. Where am I from? I'm from Canada, from southern Ontario, in a small city called St. Catharines. Grew up there my whole life, and when I was 24, I think, I left. I went one way to Australia, and I haven't actually lived in Canada since then. So I've traveled to a whole bunch of places, but Canada is home for me still, and I go back maybe once every couple of years to visit, to see my family and friends there. And I enjoy the visits back to Canada. I don't want to live there. It's too cold for me, but I love visiting, and it's always great to see family and friends. I've got a whole video that I did very early on about my background and stuff like that. You can click up here. It's a 2-parter. So if you're interested in going into more detail about all that stuff, you can watch that video and dive right into that. But this video is focused more on specific questions. So I'm from Canada. How can I legally live in Portugal? My dad is from Scotland, and I have a British passport. And with Brexit looming, I flew up from where I was living. I was living in Rwanda in East Africa. I flew up before the very first Brexit date, went into the residency office, did all that stuff, and snuck in basically before Brexit happened. But then, of course, they delayed the Brexit dates for like 2 or 3 years after that. But I got in, got all the paperwork done, and I was able to do that and then go back to Rwanda, where I lived for another couple of years. And then when I was ready to move to Portugal, I had all my paperwork in order, and I didn't have to worry about not having that freedom of movement that we had before Brexit. Why Portugal? I knew I wanted to move to Europe. I wanted to be closer to my parents in Canada. I was enjoying living in Africa, but I just wanted to change, and Europe was the place for me. I wanted to sneak in before Brexit and get set up in Europe. And initially I was looking at France, but then I think I just got onto a website called Pure Portugal, which has a whole bunch of property and land listings, and I just got caught up in it. The prices were amazing, the website's really well set up, and it's just so easy to get lost in all of these exciting properties and bits of land, and yeah, it just kind of pulled me in. And then I just started looking at Portugal as a place to live. A major factor was the cost of land here, and that was probably my biggest motivator. This website had lots of places that fit my budget, and there's also lots of other websites as well with places that I was looking at. And I just kind of decided that this is the place for me, and I think I actually decided before I'd even visited Portugal. So I don't know, sometimes you just get a feeling about a place, and I feel like Portugal, though the cost was my motivator for moving here, I just kind of had a feeling that it was the right place to be. It's also pretty close to Canada. I can get to Toronto on a direct flight in 7 hours, and yeah, the climate was appealing, although sitting here in this crazy heat, I see that might have been foolish of me, but overall the winters are quite mild, and that was a draw as well. And just seemed like there was a lot of people doing a lot of exciting things, especially in this area, and it just kind of drew me in. So cost initially, but then there's a whole bunch of other things that I love about Portugal, and I'm really, really happy with my choice. Am I planning on becoming a citizen? Definitely. Part of the reason for me wanting to choose somewhere in Europe after leaving Rwanda was because Brexit was looming, and I wanted to sneak my way back in and get citizenship in some European countries so I wouldn't lose out on that wonderful freedom of movement that you get, or that I used to have with the British passport. So citizenship is definitely my goal. I think after 5 years of being here, you get, right now I have a temporary residency, then you get a permanent residency, and I think after 10 years you can get a passport. I haven't looked into it too much because it seems kind of far away, but that's the main goal, one day having a Portuguese passport. A couple questions I get quite often are, do I get lonely and do I feel unsafe living alone in rural Portugal? Safety thing, not at all. Portugal is an incredibly safe country, at least as far as I can tell. This area feels super safe, and I'm not really a person that worries so much about personal safety. I feel like, put the trust out there in the world and don't act completely crazy and be a little bit responsible, and I don't think the world's that crazy of a place or that scary of a place. And in my life experience, I've always been treated well by people, and I don't really have any reason to be fearful about living on my own in Portugal, and so that's kind of what I'm going with. I feel like, I could be scared and worried all the time, or I could just kind of trust in the place that I'm in and go with the feeling that I have, and it just seems like a really nice, safe country, and so far, knock on wood, my experience has been really positive, and I definitely feel very, very safe living here, even on my own in rural Portugal. And I have to say, it's not even that rural. Right behind me, up the hill, is the village, and bigger villages that way, and a city sort of over the hill as well. So I'm not out in the middle of nowhere, and even if I was, I think in this part of Portugal, I would still feel very safe. And do I get lonely? Not really. I'm quite comfortable in my own company. I spent a lot of time growing up drawing and painting and doing hobbies that were sort of solo efforts, and I was always very satisfied just doing that. I do find that after about 4 days, if I haven't left my little farm, or if no one stopped by for coffee, or if I haven't met someone, I do feel like that's my limit for not having human contact. So I'll usually try to arrange a coffee with somebody, meet someone for dinner, invite people over, whatever. So 4 days is kind of my maximum, but it doesn't need to be a big thing. It just needs to be, hello, have a conversation with another human being, as opposed to talking to the cats all the time, and then I'm good for another little while. This area of Portugal is very social. I've got a pretty big circle of friends, and there's always stuff going on. So I'm never short of things to do, and I find that more often than not, I'm actually deciding to not do things rather than doing things all the time. There's just, if I wanted to, I could be out probably every other day doing something or meeting up with somebody. But I like my downtime. I like my solo time. I'm really excited to have Sinead here because we've kind of got a little arrangement where we've both got our own projects on the go, but we come together and spend time together as well, up here or down there, and help each other here and there. And so I guess having her here has maybe made things a little less lonely, but I wouldn't say that I was lonely before either. So it's a tough one. I feel like if you're somebody that's not so comfortable with spending time on your own and working on sort of solo projects and things, and you always wanted stimulation, then maybe being in rural Portugal might not be for you. But as I said, there's always stuff on the go, so I feel like if you're a really social person, you can always go out and find things to do as well. So for me, I get a nice balance of having Sinead here, having my alone time when I need it, and being able to go off into the world and do a variety of different activities, or go to parties, or have dinners, or whatever. So the short answer is I don't feel lonely. I'm very happy with my situation, and yeah, it's all good. It feels like a really nice balance. And let's go down to this one. Since I mentioned Sinead, how long have Sinead and I been friends? I've known Sinead since, I think, 2008. There were a bunch of hurricanes that hit Haiti. I think there was 4 hurricanes that hit it, and we met in a place called Gonaïves, which was really badly hit. And we were doing this disaster response stuff, and I met her doing that. So I don't know, 15 years ago, I guess. And yeah, we've been friends ever since, meeting up here and there. We spent, I think, about 4 years traveling together as part of this organization, doing other disaster response things. And yeah, we visited each other over the years, and now we're neighbors. So it's pretty amazing, and I feel really, really lucky. And since we're on the friends topic, another question I got was, are friends in the videos people I already knew, or are they people that I met here in Portugal? And the answer is everybody that you've seen in the videos have been friends that I've met here. So I came for the first time in 2017, and I stayed at Kila Yoga Farm, which is run by a couple friends of mine. And yeah, through that, I ended up volunteering for a while, coming back the next year with Sinead, and met a whole circle of their friends. And then when I decided I was going to stay here, I met some more people. And so all of my social circle kind of sprung out from that experience volunteering there. And I feel like if you're somebody who wants to move to a new place and you're maybe nervous about meeting new people or what, you could volunteer, and that's a great way to worm your way into people's social circles and yeah, make friends basically. So yeah, I've got lots of really interesting, fun friends that I've met when I got here in Portugal, and I continue to meet lots of really inspiring and interesting people as I stay here. So it's a really nice place to be, and I feel like I've got a really close, tight-knit, fun friends group, and I feel really lucky to have that, and even more lucky to have Sinead kind of joining into the mix as well. What was my occupational direction before Portugal? Basically, I graduated with a business degree from the university in my hometown and split. I got a one-way ticket to Australia, and yeah, haven't been back to Canada since then. And I wouldn't say I've really had a career. I've kind of just done jobs. So in Australia, I picked fruit. Then I got to the UK, and I ended up, I think, did some office temping, got a job as a travel agent in London. Then I worked for the London Ambulance Service for a while, just in an office. So I did some office work, went to New Zealand, picked some apples, came back to the UK, went back to the ambulance service, and then I ended up doing this disaster volunteering stuff for 3 years, funded by income from some websites that I'd made. So I kind of, during my time in London, I spent a bunch of time learning how to code websites, and I basically built up a whole bunch of mostly backpacking and travel related websites. And then those websites became places that other websites wanted to advertise on, wanted to put links on. So that was a little digital nomad-y kind of income for me, and I traveled around doing that. Then I got to Kigali, and I already knew how to make websites, so I decided to make one for the city, which then turned into business. And then I saw that there weren't any maps anywhere in the region, and I decided to learn how to make maps. And so I don't know if I really had an occupational path. It's kind of just a whole bunch of happy accidents. Maybe seeing some opportunities and getting lucky with how they turned out. Definitely making the websites and having that be a place that other websites wanted to buy links on. That was really lucky that happened, and it turned into a nice earner for quite a while. Yeah, and starting a website at the right time, and just getting these maps out as well, where no other maps existed, was good timing as well. So I guess I've kind of gone down an entrepreneurial path, and I suppose this YouTube thing or whatever else I end up doing in Portugal will probably be something self-employed. It's sort of how I tend to do things. So that's my occupational path. I don't know if I call it occupation, but that's kind of my trajectory for making money along my travels and finding my way to Portugal eventually. This weather is brutal. I've just had to take a little break to let the camera cool down. It keeps freaking out because of the heat. Camera says no, but I think it's fine for the next little while. So where was I? Occupational direction, done. How did I get into map making? Totally by accident, I guess. I suppose I'm somebody who's got a graphic design background. I've always done drawing, and that then transitioned into computer graphics and things like that. And I love maps. And when I got to Kigali, I saw that there wasn't, first of all, there wasn't a website, so I made one. And then I saw that there wasn't a decent map, or any map really. So I guess I just let my imagination run wild and decided that I feel like I could make a pretty cool map. And worked for 2 years, or 2.5 years maybe, on the first edition for the Kigali map, which was my first map. And it was a labor of love. I did it on the side. The website was my main business. But it was a wonderful experience just walking around every street in the city. I had a little clipboard and I visited all the restaurants, and it was just a wonderful way to explore a city kind of with a goal in mind. And I made the first map and it was very successful, and it just got me thinking about other cities. And making the map is the most wonderful part of the process. I love it, just walking around. I walked all around Nairobi, Kampala, and Addis Ababa, and that's great. The tricky part is figuring out how to actually do business in all of these countries, figuring out import-export laws, because there wasn't really places that could print the map in some of the countries. And it was just a really challenging but fun experience. And I guess my answer is I got into it by accident. I saw a need, and I saw that maybe my skill set and my interests would be able to figure out how to fill that need, and I did it. And then I did it in a few other cities as well. Unfortunately, COVID came along and people weren't traveling anymore, so the maps business kind of fell by the wayside. I still have things set up in some of the countries, and I could definitely do a reprint if I wanted to. I know all of the maps are sold out. Maybe I would go back to Nairobi and do another reprint. I could definitely go back to Kigali and do a reprint pretty easily, because I have lots of connections there. But I think for the moment I'm just really focused on being here in Portugal. And I would love to do some kind of a map of this region, some sort of artistic map, or maybe something a bit more guidebooky like my current maps, my Africa maps. But it's about finding the time. So that is something that I'd love to do in the future. I'm blogging on a lot about maps. If anyone's interested in the maps that I make, click on this website up here, and you can explore all of the different maps and get an idea of what I'm talking about. But it was a wonderful experience having that little small business for about 5 years. And yeah, I learned a lot, and I definitely learned a lot about all those cities, and I feel like people really appreciated them, and I made a product that I was really proud of as well, which is really cool. So the maps was a wonderful, happy accident. Just got into it and found that I really loved it, and just kept doing it for a little while. So that's the answer to that question. What is the biggest adjustment I've had since moving to Portugal? I don't know. I guess the easy answer for that would be the language. I came from Rwanda, where people speak English, most people. And so coming to Portugal, to rural Portugal, where I need to learn the language and I need to figure that out to communicate. Yeah, that's been a big adjustment. And I can't say I've done very well. I've got my few words I can get by. I can get a few things done, but I've definitely dropped the ball on language learning since I've been here. It's just really hard, and there's lots of other things I have to do, and I haven't made it a priority, which is boo to me, because I actually think learning a language is incredibly important, and I just haven't got to the standard that I should be at for the amount of time that I've been here. So yeah, I should use this as an opportunity. I'm putting that out there. I feel bad. I feel ashamed of my language level, and I'm going to try to be better at actually doing some learning going forward. So that was the biggest, not really a shock. What was the question? Adjustment. Yeah, I guess the adjustment of having to communicate in a different language has been a big deal. The biggest adjustment since living off-grid, that's another question. I don't know. I actually feel like life is pretty easy off-grid. I think you kind of set up your systems to solve the problems that you have. And if you're smart about what you set up early on and try to solve the biggest problems, then life off-grid doesn't really have to be that challenging. You know, it gets challenging if you move off into the middle of nowhere in Alaska and have to figure out a winter there, or if you're off down a path, down like a crazy, in a forest, and you don't have a car, or I don't know. I think like there can be all kinds of off-grid setups. But for me, I live on the edge of a village. I have all my needs met by my solar power system. It's totally adequate. The toilet situation doesn't freak me out. Pooping into a bucket, totally fine. So I don't really care about that. And water, it was a challenge at first because I didn't really have things set up, but now it's a flick of a switch and it fills up the tanks. And sure, I don't have running water in the house, but you just kind of get used to things, and I know that eventually I will. So off-grid life can be the same or as easy as just living with the utilities. And I feel like I'm set up to a point now where it doesn't feel like a challenge. Early on, failing water pumps and figuring out how to move water around the land and things like that was a challenge. But besides that, not having a wood stove for the first winter, for the first couple of months. I don't think I put mine in until mid-November. That was a shock to the system because Portugal gets really cold, and those stone buildings really do bring in the cold. So yeah, I think the heating of the place has been maybe my biggest challenge because firewood is a lot of work, and putting in the stove is a lot of work, and I did it. There was delays, and so I definitely struggled with that. But again, like anything, the stove is in there, it's all set up, and maybe the biggest challenge for off-grid life would be the annual buying and preparing of firewood, stacking it, cutting it to size, finding the money to buy it because it is quite expensive. And so, yeah, so as opposed to maybe flicking on, the furnace or an electric heater, if you live on the grid, powering a wood stove, sorting out all the firewood stuff, that is actually quite a big challenge. So that's my answer for that one. But overall, I feel like life off-grid, at least for me, hasn't come with too many major adjustments. It's just you have to be a little bit more conscious of the solar power that you use, or the energy that you use, and I have to be a bit more conscious about how much water I'm using, make sure I remember to pump it when the sun is shining, and stuff like that. So small adjustments, nothing major, but firewood is a massive pain in the ass, and that's my answer for my biggest challenge. Here's a very, very specific question. Do I follow ice hockey, and what is my favorite team? This might not be interesting to most of you out there, but I used to follow ice hockey, and my team was the Quebec Nordique, who at the time when I started following hockey, they were the crappiest Canadian team, and they'd been crappy for many years. And I wanted to get into hockey. I didn't want to support the local team because everyone did. And I chose the crappiest team in Canada, going for the underdog, and I felt comfortable with my choice. I had a lot of fun following them over the years. And then something happened. I don't know if it was a lockout or a strike, and the team was doing really well. They were on track to win, and then the whole season was canceled. And then the team moved to Colorado and became the Colorado Avalanche. And then, disillusioned, I stopped following ice hockey. So that was my brief foray into the world of hockey. I'm really more of a baseball fan. Go Blue Jays. But in all honesty, I don't follow sports the way I used to. I used to be more into it than I am now. I didn't even watch any of the Olympics, which is actually crazy. But yeah, so used to be a sports fan, not so much anymore. But Quebec Nordiques, anyone out there? I don't know if any of you guys were a fan. If you followed the Quebec Nordiques back in the day, leave me a message. Anyway, too much detail. That was my team, but I don't follow it anymore. Do I have a P.O. box to send stuff to? I do. My mail goes up to the post office, and it is possible to send me stuff. However, Portugal's customs is crazy, and you can't really get anything in here from anywhere outside the EU. I've heard about friends getting boxes of used clothes taken into customs. I've heard about birthday cards being taken, all kinds of stuff, all kinds of little things, and you have to pay money. You've got to go through this weird, complicated system, pay some money to customs to get it back. And I've learned over the years not to even try to accept stuff from outside the EU. So if anyone out there does want to send me something, that's really amazing. I'll put my email below. Contact me, depending where you are in the world. Perhaps it will work. But yeah, it's a nice thought. And I do have a P.O. box, but sending stuff here, yeah, it's tricky. It's pretty tricky. I do have an Amazon wish list. The link is below. And that comes from, I think, German Amazon. So it's already in the EU, and there's not going to be any problems with customs. And I also have a PayPal link below, and there's the super thanks you can do through YouTube. And I've recently set up Patreon. I'll put the link below It's not fully set up yet, but I know a bunch of you out there had said that you would encourage me to do so, so I've set it up, and you'll see that being filled with stuff fairly soon. I think I'll probably just end up doing a €2 membership, which gets you nothing. It just is a way of maybe supporting my channel if my channel is something that brings you joy, and then maybe in the future I'll add perks. So sending me stuff by mail, it's not ideal, but if you do want to send something and want to chat about it more, send me an email below and we'll see what happens. If you're inside the EU, probably fine. If you're outside the EU, probably not. And the next question is about my parents. And I know a lot of you out there love watching the videos when they're around helping me out. They tend to come for around a month each year, and they've been here quite a few times so far. You can check the playlist up here if you want to see videos of their visits from the beginning. And the question is, would my parents consider coming for longer over the winter? I'm not sure the winter in Portugal is as warm and toasty as people might think it is. Central Portugal gets quite cold in the winter, and I feel like if my parents were going to escape the winter, they'd probably go to Florida or to an island in the Caribbean or something like that rather than Portugal. But that doesn't mean they don't like coming in the spring, which is a beautiful time of year. And they've been also in October one year as well. So they come at different times of the year, but I can't see them coming to hide out for a whole winter here at any point in the future, because it's just not that warm and it's really rainy, and I can't imagine it would be that much fun. Is there anything I'd do differently if I had to start over? Yeah, probably. Well, the big overarching thing is maybe I'd have my finances a little bit more sorted. I guess COVID kind of threw a spanner into the works. I had a plan. I was going to live in Portugal most of the year and go back to Africa and do these maps, and that was going to be my income. So I had to kind of scramble to figure stuff out after that. So if I'd had maybe more savings or some sort of passive income coming in that I'd set up, that would have probably been very useful. But I'm making do, I'm getting by, and on a more practical level on the land, I'd say not to plant a whole bunch of things until the water system is set up. So I started a garden before I had a working pump. I had a pump, but it was pretty terrible, and so I had to water by bucket, which was crazy. And I also planted about 50 grapevines on my bottom terrace. That took a lot of effort. I think the vines cost about €1 or 2 each, so pretty expensive when you buy 50 of them. And I basically stuck them in the ground and didn't water them because it was a pain in the neck watering because I didn't have stuff set up. So they all died. The one next to my house is the only one that remains. And yeah, I guess I've seen a couple trees die as well, possibly due to the inconvenience of watering. So if you're gonna buy a piece of land, I feel like putting trees in the ground straight away is great advice as well, but I'd make sure you have a way to easily water things, because in the summer you definitely don't want to be hauling buckets around, and I didn't, and many grapevines have perished as a result. Any plans to make and sell preserves? I guess my two things are pickles and the jalapenos. And pickles I kind of give away or trade, and jalapenos I do the same. I like to barter. But I do have some customers. I've got a couple friends that have pizza businesses and some other friends that do Mexican food. So there's a potential there to have a little side hustle selling jalapenos to them. And that's my plan. That's why I've gone a lot bigger on the jalapenos this year. And that's why I have the polytunnel to move them to over winter. So most of my chili peppers are in pots, so I can move them around and keep them nice and cozy over winter, and hopefully continue to have big harvests every year, grow the operation, get more plants, and possibly find more customers. So jalapenos, yeah, I think I'll try to sell those, but everything else, anything I make, I just like to kind of barter. And the last question, which loops back to the beginning, is what's up with the logo? And so I guess now is the time for the great logo reveal. As I said, I started this, I guess, 1.5 years ago. I was in Canada a couple Christmases ago and spent a bunch of time working on the computer and hashed out a few ideas, and I presented them to you guys, asked for opinions. A lot of you liked the logo that I ended up going with. a lot of you said that it doesn't really represent the channel. I feel like it probably would make a lot of sense to do a house with a blue door or something to do with the cats, but I've gone with the design that I think encompasses what I'm doing here. I've gone with the snail design, and the idea with the snail design is that I work really slowly. Snails are the most common thing that I see on this land, and it's got its little tiny house on its back. Plus I've added the little heart and the flowers, and that kind of is representative of a logo or a little character here called, I think it's the rooster of Barcelos. I might be butchering that, but it looks like this. And I wanted to try to incorporate that fun, festive feel into the snail logo. The problem is, I'm not exactly sure what to do about the colors. So we've got kind of the simplistic form of the logo right now, and I'm gonna work on something that's a little bit more colorful. So that's the logo. It's gonna appear on the beginning of all my videos. You'll see it in the channel logo and everything like that. And I'd be very curious to know what you think about it. And if you think I should make some merchandise, make some stickers or something like that, let me know. If you just want to comment on the logo, good or bad, leave me a comment below. I love to hear feedback. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's constructive and not mean. So that's the logo, and that's a wrap on my question and answer session. So if you have any further questions, any follow-up questions, let me know in the comments and I'll address them there. But overall, that's a rundown on me, my move to Portugal, some general questions about life here, and I hope you gathered a bit of insight into my life and about who I am, and I hope you enjoyed the video. So again, I'm blabbing on. It's just the thing I do at the end of the videos, I suppose. So if you did like it, give it a like, subscribe, share it around, all that stuff. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.